observation skills isn't just what you see, it's what you hear as well. You can take a lot from just listening to, like you said, being in and around them having their drinks breaks. What are they talking about? Are they talking about the session? What are they interacting? How are they interacting? What are they saying during the session? Can you hear what they're actually thinking? Because sometimes you can hear kids actually thinking because they say it out loud. So it's really important that observation isn't just what you see, it's also what you hear.
For new coaches, as a starting point, what would you advise them to observe at training? For me, it's usually the kids that are brand new into football. So where my little boy plays, or the coach that coaches session, they're all new parent volunteers. So for me, I'd always say, are the kids having fun? Are they wanting to come back? One of the things I observe is when we drop him off at football, I notice the kids running into the session. And for me, that's an observation for me off the pitch to go, actually, the kids are enjoying this.
I used to work with a coach going to Toozy would always say, if they're not kicking the door down, we've got a problem.
Yep.
If they're not booting the door down to get in, we've got a problem. I think that's a wonderful thing. They've got to be sweaty. Yep. They've got to be running around. They've got to be enjoying it. They've got to be involved. Those are the things to look for, 100%.
And I think just leading on from that, observation skills isn't just what you see, it's what you hear as well. You can take a lot from just listening to, like you said, being in and around them having their drinks breaks. What are they talking about? Are they talking about the session? What are they interacting? How are they interacting? What are they saying during the session? Can you hear what they're actually thinking? Because sometimes you can hear kids actually thinking because they say it out loud. So it's really important that observation isn't just what you see, it's also what you hear.
I think linked to that then is, you know, as the weeks goes on, that fun environment isn't going to happen on week one. It's asking coaches to go, actually, if I'm going to observe an environment, it's more around the environment for those new coaches. So can they create the right environment for those kids to knock that door down when they get to your session, and you're essentially trying to drag them off the pitch? And if we can create that environment for as new coaches, then you can get into the other bits to develop them as skillful players. But for me, it's around creating an environment where kids want to fall in love with the game, and if we can create that, then we're on to a winner.
What would you recommend coaches to observe on match day? Because I think sometimes, like we've spoke about before, it's not actually just observing what's happening there and then. You might actually be observing parents and how the children are reacting, because you might have a situation where you find that the players are not listening to you and they're not taking on the feedback you're giving them. It's because their parents constantly on their shoulder up and down that sideline. And sometimes you don't see it when you're watching the game because you've got loads of different things to see. But yeah, I'm going to go down the route of have a look at what your parents are doing, because especially in the youth games, sometimes that can overshine what a kid is hearing and seeing.
Including the parents in what you're doing and why you're doing it is a really powerful tool in terms of like establishing that environment. At this club we do these things. For the next 6 weeks you might see your child doing this. We're playing these systems, if you like. We're doing this, working on this. We've got these games. She might see the behaviours. That you can include them in that, can't you? It stops that.
Massively.
When I coached in grassroots, I used to work with an under-16 group, inner city Leeds, and a lot of the kids didn't have parental support, so they used to get buses. Like one group of kids got 4 buses into town, then out, and there was like 2 more buses to get to where we played. Often, as coach, you would go, "Oh, they're really struggling today." Well, actually, they've had it's taken them 2 hours to get here to the game. So I think sometimes we need to look at like how they are prior, and then does that have an impact on them during the game? I think that's vital especially for coaches that are working with that 15, 16-year-old age group where they don't have mum and dad carers dropping them off. They're coming on bikes, they're getting into your game no matter what. And then we can't be too hard on them. We still need to create that environment that we would for 5-year-olds, because they're coming back for a reason. Yeah,
we can't go after what's going on out there. We can definitely understand it and help. It's also like, particularly teenagers, say you're coaching in the evening, you're the 8th person that's asked them for their absolute attention that day. You're the 8th person that's asking for their hard effort. You're the 8th person who's asked them to look at them and to listen. And so that's a really important context in terms of observation skills. But we can share observation skills as well, can't we? So if we've got a group of coaches, now I know it's different across grassroots, it's different across academies, but if I'm working with you, Loz, and you, Rosie, we can really go for, I'm watching Jack and such. Rosie, you're on the centre forwards. Yep. Loz, you're looking at us when we haven't got the ball, and we can have those sense-making conversations as the game's going on, rather than we all commentating, "Oh, George, yeah. Start shouting and screaming at the game. We can have, what you seeing, Rosie? What you seeing?
That impacts on your team. So when I did grassroots, I'd always look at in possession, and then my assistant would look at out of possession. Even when it came to half time, I would give feedback based on the in possession stuff, and then my assistant would give feedback based on the out of possession stuff. And then when it came to the team talk, the kids were really clear on what they were getting off us.
And I really like that idea of, if you've got, say, 3 of you there and you've picked 2 or 3 players each, it comes back to that whole thing at half time, you're going to say something different to what I am because you see something different, same with you and myself, whereas you're the only person watching them 2 children. It's only going to be your feedback, it's only going to be one set of feedback, which is what that child needs at that time in that game, rather than hearing 3 different voices. So I think that's really important as well.
Really good practice would be creating that environment where the kids, while they're having a water break after a game, or in the middle of as they just come off from the first half, first period, whatever it is, they're feeding back to each other, and we've skillfully put a list, because we worked with Be Skillful, we've skillfully put a list together ourselves of what we would like to talk to them about. But if we ask them in their units or in pairs or in whatever it is, and they feed back to us, well, I know you said that, I'm really glad you said that, because I had that. You know, that gives them a voice, doesn't it? So we can understand what they're observing, and then anything they've missed off or anything that we haven't, we can then look from a coach's point of view. That's really good, but actually have a think about. So
that really empowers the players then to have ownership, and then that again helps you build that relationship with your players. I've seen some coaches where they've gone to the point of, there'll be certain match weeks where they go, actually, you as a group, you pick your team, you pick your formation, you pick your outcomes, and then you run the game yourself. And coaches are really taking a step back and they're there to create that safe environment. But in terms of the feedback that goes into the players, who goes where, it's all down to the kids. And I think that sometimes as coaches, it allows you to then take a step back and look at the social side of them. Okay, can adopting different coaching positions help coaches with their observations? I think for me is we can't just stand on the side and fold our arms and observe. I think moving into different areas of the pitch will give you different viewpoints, and I think that's good, because the way you see something from the side will be completely different from where you see from the back. I think also, depending on where you train, there might be an opportunity to go onto the balcony where you see even more.
Combined with the intended outcomes. Yeah. I'm standing here because I'm looking at, I'm standing next to my keeper because I'm talking to and looking at. Yeah, absolutely. If we're more intentional about where we stand, because, not I feel like standing in the middle today. I'm standing here because. Yeah, really good. Okay, what tools and frameworks can coaches use to observe effectively? 6 capabilities is a great way to think about sharpening your lens around a certain aspect of play, isn't it? A certain aspect of gameplay. So is it technical? Is it timing? Is it movement? Is it position, body orientation? Is it disguise, deception? So what are we looking at? What moment are we looking at, and why?
Yeah, probably really good point. I think, simple thing of, receiving, for example, using the six capabilities might be, if I'm observing Rosie receive the ball, it's not always just, receive on the outside of your foot to move forward, but how might Rosie receive it? So I think using the six capabilities might be, actually, I'm going to look at you receiving tonight, Rosie, but I want to look at your movement. Is how do you find pockets of space to receive the ball?
Yeah, I think the 6 capabilities are massive in terms of giving coaches that starting point of what to look for, and then that's where you can start really building in some really in-depth detail of what you're looking at. Now, using those 6 capabilities, how can we really push on our players that are really excelling to that next levels?
And I think simple thing around using 6 capabilities might be, actually, we got taught just shoot using your laces, finish using your laces, but actually when we look at technique, there's loads of technique. So a simple intervention might just be, I'm going to observe my players tonight around their finishing, but I'm going to really focus on their technique, and then we can get loads of different types of finishing out just from framing that task for your players to go, actually, I'm going to really look at your technique, rather than saying to players, you can only shoot using your laces. Actually, we need to allow the kids to be more creative with their finishing, because we see it when we're out.
We can have real fun with it, can't we? The 6 capabilities, we can have real fun with disguise, enticing, and dragging players out of positions and enticing them into mistakes. And it's a real energetic way and thoughtful way to think about your detail.
And I think it kind of ties in nicely with the planning model. So what you find a lot of, and social media is great for sessions, but we see it all the time that they'll see a session, coaches will see a session online, Man City will put up a warm-up drill and they take it back to their under-8s, and then the coach is frustrated because the players can't do it. Well, because you've done the session design before you've even thought about your intended outcomes. So now we're really trying to connect those dots of, can we observe our players? Round that observation piece, can we now really be detailed around our intended outcomes, and can that now shape our practice design?
Yeah, very good coach I had the privilege to work with would say Jimmy and Joe's, not X's and O's. You can change that, can't you? So the people first, why they're learning, what they're learning, who they're learning, and then the X's and O's is your final point.
What's the one piece of equipment you take with you everywhere to record your observations, and how much information does it have stored within it? And how often do you reflect on them? Oh, wow. I think the piece of equipment for me around observation is I've got like a little notebook for all my, not all my sessions, but so I've just got a notepad that I use. It's like an A5 notepad, and it'll just have notes in there that I write down when observing, because often, and I got taught this by a coach once. He just had I was like, why do you always have that notepad? He was, oh, I'll just write everything in. But going back to your bit around intentions, it's writing the right stuff in. So, for example, might be just a simple tally around number of passes that we've made in the final third, because we've worked on attacking in the final third. But then looking at forward passing, so it's really intended. And then it's a simple thing that I'll give it to one of the players on the side who's on the bench that week, who's ready to come on, to go, actually, for the next 10 minutes, every time we make a forward pass in this area, put a tally on. And just a simple thing like that to help me in terms of, one, giving a task to another player, but also when it comes back to feedback, it's go, actually, in the last 10 minutes you made 6 forward passes in this area. And it's just keeping that with me all the time. What do you have?
In the olden days?
That is the olden days.
Before phones. And stuff. I would have had a dictaphone match day.
Yeah.
On a match day in particular. Session on with you, notepad. And a coach I used to work with, exactly the same, said, write it down, because particularly if something wasn't working, write it down, because if you should probably calm down by the time you've written it down, and it stops you making that barking call that can ultimately affect the player in the wrong way. So notepad first, and then a dictaphone for match days.
Yeah.
To just, as things are going, stopwatch, give me a chance to relate it back to the footage. So I could just go 68 minute, have a look at Sparky's, the ways he approached the ball and got the ball into the box, So nowadays we can do all that on a phone, can't we? These are amazing things, aren't they? Just like voice notes, I can voice note, I can annotate, I can do all that stuff, I can capture stuff with permission, I can capture stuff, as long as it doesn't stay on there. So probably my phone these days, I think.
Yeah, I think mine's evolved over time, and probably just speaking as a coach developer more than a coach. It used to be book and write down notes, but I think you get so wrapped up writing notes that you're not watching, and we're talking about observation. So the time you've wrote down a couple of lines, you've missed some really big points. And then I went on to using my phone in the notes, and then I felt like professionally it didn't look right, and I didn't feel comfortable doing it. So my latest one is a microphone like this that hooks up to my phone, and I just put it on. Most of the coaches don't even know it's there, and it picks up the conversations I have with the coaches, and it also gives me a chance just to commentate throughout, and then it's scribed onto my phone.
I think we're seeing that a lot now in grassroots is, a lot of clubs will have the cameras, and I think that's been such a game changer in terms of for grassroots coaches to really unpick their games, unpick their training sessions, where I think when I was coming through it was just like notepad, and I still use that, but actually like where I coach, the school I coach at, they've got a camera, and you go, actually you can get some really good stuff out, but it's then looking at the right stuff again, going back to the observation it's great getting the full game, but then what you're looking for in that game. So even having the moments of the game, I saw a combination which we worked on, and you just try and write down we did it there, and then when you come back to it you can really build it and share it back with the kids as well. So it's not always the observation and the video for you, but actually share it back with the players, because they can go, did that in training, did it in a game, I'm going to try it again now. I'm going to build on it even more.
Once training or match day is over, what happens next? What should coaches do with their observations? So first of all, for me, it's go away and really consolidate what you've got written down. Try and make sense of it. Does your opinion changed after match day? Can you link training and match day together? I think that's really important. So we're now taking that observation to the next level. Right, this is what we worked on in training. Did I see it in the game? If I did, yes, when did I see it? What happened? What were those scenarios? If I didn't see it, was there any reasons why I didn't see it? And it might be things like you might be working on the player to open their body to switch play, but you've been short of players, so you've had to put somebody in goal, for example. So it might come down to little factors like that. And then once you've done your observations, that should be the next stage for your intended outcomes for your next session the following week. How can I really step it up?
The review element is the hardest part, isn't it, almost? Like the review of how you sense make what you've seen to then ultimately help the players you're looking after, the kids in your care, either in the next session, next game, next week, or next time that moment comes up in the curriculum. Yeah, that review process, they do say, isn't it? You should spend the same amount of time reviewing as you do planning, as you do executing. So if it's a 90-minute session, spend 90 minutes with detail, think about it, 90 minutes executing it, 90 minutes reviewing it, making sure that we either pick up on the bits that we don't necessarily do quite right, or the bits that could be even better.
Like I say, you've observed the wrong thing, the reflection isn't going to help. Often you see coaches where they go, oh, we've worked on this, but because of the game, we got beat or we won. The reflection's usually around the result, but actually you've been working on attacking central areas, you've gone through attack and nearly scored 6 times, but you got beat 2-1, and it's more geared towards the score. But actually, if you reflected on your outcome, you've done really well there because you've got what your outcome was. But because of the score's different, the reflection sometimes not linked to what you've been working on. And I think sometimes that's for coaches it goes back to that winning versus losing. Like, you've won in a way because you've got the outcomes that you wanted, but the result doesn't show that.
The age-old argument, isn't it? Like, you never send kids out to lose a game.
No.
Kids definitely don't want to lose a game of football. And it's nice when you win. Yeah. It's nice to win. But just because we won, it doesn't mean we did the things, like you say, it doesn't mean the outcomes are right. We didn't do things the right way we did. What was our behaviour like? What was their behaviour like? Yeah, winning, it shouldn't have to be winning or development. It can be both. Yeah. It's a longitudinal thing, development. So it's keeping an eye and reviewing, observing, exactly like you say, observing the correct things, observing the key things in line with your intended outcomes, and sustaining that learning is really important, isn't it? Yeah. But we never send kids out to lose. No. Not on purpose.
We kind of also, as well, in terms of observation, how do we include the players in this reviewing? Because I think that's important as well, because you can go out there and you can try and improve that player next week based on what you've seen. But if that player doesn't see what you see or disagrees with what you've seen, then that's when the barriers start coming in. So how can we really start making that review process normal within a game? Is that where we include the parents maybe and start educating the parents on the right questions to ask on the car on the way home?
Back in my time in club, kids had diaries. Had a player diary. It's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, because each one was dog-eared and personal, and every single story that they told of the week was different. So they'd review their sessions in the week. It's not complicated stuff, but what was the key outcomes? Did you have fun? What was the thing you'd improve? And then the last page was just 3 questions about the game, which are the questions we encourage the parents to ask, which was, how did you play? What did you do well? If you could do it again, what would you improve? And then there was a box at the bottom, which was a pitch. And it was draw your best moment from the game. And every week, that was my favourite page to look at. They picked up things, they observed things that you didn't necessarily think they'd seen. Yeah. But they're very able to articulate, the kids, and we're talking 9 to 11, 12-year-olds, really easily able to articulate a particular moment in the game, every nuance of it. And the drawings weren't great, but actually the writing, the learning was brilliant. And you were able to have conversations. You didn't hit them over the head with it. You were able to have conversations about this stuff and engage them in their observations.
We used to do that in club. So if we were working on a certain aspect or a topic, we'd send like an A4 sheet back with the kids. So it's that drive home with parents after a game or after training. It helped form those conversations with their parents, and I think that really helped some of the players that had anxiety at times, where they go, oh, I didn't do well today because I didn't do X, Y and Z, but actually the conversations the players were having were based on the questions we wanted the parents to ask. So if you've got parents that love football and have got a lot of experience and knowledge around football, then it helped them shape conversations around it. If you've got parents that have got no interest in football, it's not always, oh, what was the score today? Did you score? Actually, no, like, you were working on this today. These are some questions that we asked as a club to parents to ask, and I think that really helps with some of the players to go, actually, that drive home now isn't as bad. And the thing now, like, I am going with technology, like, we send out a Google form to the kids. We send it out, it's part of their homework task. Their home learning is when they've had a game, and it's done across the school, is they've had a game and it's just 3 questions about the game, like, answer them, and then they send it back. Some are really good, really rich, and some are just like 1 word.
Seen some really good practice starting to happen, particularly with Huddle and some of the other analytical tools, where, and this is particularly in the teenage years, one club I'm looking after at the minute, a couple of the coaches have got the players tagging each other based on their own ILPs. They all know each other's learning objectives, the things they're working on, and the coaches at times will pair them up that way. But also, say you're working on your long passing from the back, your distribution, diagonal, and I'm working on running off shoulders of the winger, of the fullback, sorry. Well, we can definitely work on that together. And there might be moments where I'm going to come short, but you know that I want it there, like my body language is letting you know. And these lads are atting each other on Huddle and clipping each other, and like, hey, at number da-da-da, look at number da-da-da. That's really good. Like, that's some really thoughtful peer-to-peer, involving them in their observation skills. Like, that's like a reflective, thoughtful sports person. That's what we're after, isn't it? How do you support player development through observation? A broad understanding, a real deep understanding of the child or the player, coupled with intentional observation, is the secret to developing children, developing players.
I think for me it's, understanding their development needs, but observing and giving feedback. If you're working with a player for a year or a season, you're going to have milestones in that season, but making sure you help them reach those milestones. And the way you observe and the feedback is intentional, and the observation is real key, and that's then when we get that feedback that helps them develop. It's how you give that feedback. So you might have players that just want it quite calm, and it might be a one-to-one. You might have players that are just tell me. So it's really understanding like how they want that feedback based on the observations you give them.
I think just through observation, it can really help us give players a detailed individual development plan. We have habit of coaches when kids come to us and say, oh, what can I improve on? We say the first thing and we go things like, oh, you need to be better in 1v1s. Now we can actually say is right, you need to be better in 1v1s. You need to think about your movement before you get the ball. Are you scanning? What's your body look like? What's your timings look like? So we can now be really informed on these development plans that we give in players to get better at, rather than just saying you need to be better in 1v1 battles.
I would absolutely negotiate that plan with the player. So there's absolutely no way I'm just going to tell that kid, you need to work on these things. But a far more powerful approach would be, come on then, what areas of your game do you think you need to, what are your super strengths? And if you're not sure, talk to your mate, because he'll definitely tell you what are the bits you're not so great at. And if you're not sure, talk to your mate, because he'll definitely tell you. Like that approach, asking them, finding out what the kids think, what their peers think, and then that negotiation of, do you know what, that's a really good point you put that down. I love what you've written there, that's brilliant. So I'll tell you what, how can I help you get to that? Yeah. How can I help you achieve this?
Like, again, linking to that is how well do you know your players? So if you're a grassroots coach and you've got a group of under 15 players, there might be some that you've worked with since they were 6, so you've known them for 10 years, but then you might get new players that they might have joined you for a season. So I think it's understanding the person and the first before the player, and then once you've got that, then you can start getting into those deeper development plans.
I think it's a two-way process, and it has to be a two-way process, because I think sometimes some people watching this will go, right, I'm going to go ask my players what they want to work on, and then I'm going to go with it. But we all know that what players want and what they need are very two different things at times. So it's then delving into that level of questioning. So we know what we want to get out of a player. How do we get that player to get to that same answer as us? And that's the use of those questions. But definitely wouldn't say just go and ask players what they want to do, because there's a fine line between what they actually need and what they want.
The more opportunity we give them to think about themselves, their game, what they want to get out of the game, I think we can only open up a better reflective athlete, a better learning environment for both of them. you're right, the questioning's really important, isn't it? And it doesn't necessarily, do you think it has to, do we have to converge on our opinion, or is there somewhere?
I think it's, yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I think it's asking them questions to get them thinking in a different way. I don't think it's so much us putting our opinions on them. I think it's us helping them shape their own opinions, and with a bit of guided discovery and a bit of backup knowledge, because we've observed them, and we've observed them not just once, maybe 2 or 3 times, and we've used the 6 capabilities, so we're really clear on what that player needs to work on. Now how can we translate that into their language and their understanding?
It's getting them curious to want to know more. I think if we prescribe everything to them, they're going to go, you telling me? I think if we give them too much freedom, it's then I can do what I want. It's giving them enough curiosity to go, quite like what you said. Can you tell me more? And I think once we get that point, then you can go, actually, have you thought about this? But it's been empowered by you. And it's us as coaches using our skill set to go, I've got them now. Can really go a little bit deeper with them in their development.
What advice do you have to help coaches improve their observations when working with different age groups? I'm going to go with one bit of advice that will go through all of this. If you look for everything, you'll see nothing. So you have to pick 1 or 2 bits and be really clear on what you're going after. And I think that applies through every age group, all the way through to disability football.
Kindness. That's it. If the thing coming out of your mouth isn't kind, and it doesn't help that player in that moment or going forward, don't say it. So observe with a view to help. So when you observe, how are you helping that child? How are you helping that player? And you're right, that goes right across every age group, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think for me it would be, think of the long-term development for the players. Don't get mixed up in the emotions of the session or the game. So think long-term, based on what you've said as well. Just don't think it's going to happen in that one moment. It might not happen then. I always say not yet, because it will happen at some point.
Can we always split this up into like execution and intent? So we can almost go, when you're looking, are you looking for that thing you're coaching to be performed perfectly, or are you looking for the intention of that thing you're coaching? And like noticing, being kind, being helpful, looking for that one thing, not looking for all this. That's kind of it, isn't it? Like that.
So I remember once I think when I was doing my qualifications, I think one of the coach developers at the time said, do I have to always go in? It's just going to happen. It's just not yet. Because let's say you're working on someone receiving, and the players, the ball's come, they haven't received it or lost possession, and it's kept happening. Actually, me stepping in, but if I didn't step in, it might have happened the following time. So it's finding that moment to go, actually, when is the right time to step in based on your observations. So often we see coaches, if they've made a mistake, I'm in straight away. But actually, if you just let it run a few times, they might get it after that. Right, to wrap this discussion, what are your quick fire top tips to help coaches observe effectively? Keep it simple.
Yeah, intention, definitely. What are you looking for? Not everything. The game's chaotic. Keep it simple. Intention. Don't just look at the ball. Try to think of a system that encourages you to look away and look around the game and around the practice.
Watch, listen, and don't intervene.
Enjoy watching it. Enjoy them watching. Just let them be free. Yeah, enjoy them being creative. I think that's important.